Feeling thirsty for knowledge? Hackers on the Rocks is the podcast that mixes refreshing conversation with potent cybersecurity insights. Serving up these insights with a twist, we pair a different software vulnerability with a refreshing cocktail recipe each episode. Hello, world, and greetings all around. We have a really exciting episode for you today. We are finally going to dive, at least a little bit, into artificial intelligence. Our guest, Joshua Rogers, is going to cover AI-enabled tools that assist with vulnerability discovery. He has test trialed a few and shares with us his feelings. First, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Trail of Bits. Trail of Bits combines research, engineering, and expertise to solve tomorrow's security challenges today. They transform how organizations build security software by combining expert security assessments with modern testing approaches and custom tooling that eliminated entire classes of vulnerabilities. Trail of Bits is constantly pioneering new approaches based on real-world and emerging challenges, making those solutions available to everyone through their open source tools, research, and software assurance services. As a trusted advisor for securing mission-critical applications for high-stakes innovators, thank you, Trail of Bits. All right, Joshua, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I know we've been kind of going back and forth on calendaring for a while. You're a busy man, and I can see why. The paper that you wrote was fantastic. We would not be Hackers on the Rocks without a tasty beverage in hand. So what are we drinking today?
So today, as you said, we're going to be diving into a topic. So hopefully we're going to both be diving into some soju, some Korean, I don't know what you would call it, even schnapps maybe, some sort of alcohol. I've got a yogurt flavored one, as you see this yogurt. I guess it's reversed. It's not exactly what I would expect alcohol to taste like, but I like it a lot. It tastes excellent.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm not super familiar with soju, and I went to the store, and there were like you said, it's almost like schnapps. There's just a huge variety, and I settled on lemon. So we'll my first soju experience we'll try with lemon over here. Yogurt sounds like an interesting decision. Is that a favorite? Is that a thing? Is that a popular, like, I don't know, like alcohol and yogurt
It's
feels very foreign to me.
so it's hard to say it's popular. I think it is. The most popular one is grape. I guess this is the original one. Apple as well. But this yogurt taste is not. It's not like yogurt that you have a spoon and you eat with. It's just this bacteria that yogurt is made from that somehow tastes like quite good, even in
Yeah.
alcohol. So I have my teacup here with well, you can't. I don't want to pour it over myself, but this yogurt alcohol. So cheers.
Yeah, pinkies up, man, in a fancy glass. Cheers. I will go into a traditional glass tumbler. Oh, it's clear. Interesting. Okay.
Mm.
That's good. I like it. Yeah.
So the
Now, do you feel
dangerous
like
thing with
lemon?
this is that
Mhm.
it's quite sweet, so you can just keep drinking it, and you get really drunk really quickly. Um, it's
Yeah, that was
dangerous,
literally
but
my question.
can be
It's
good.
it's very lemony. It tastes like, to me, it tastes I don't know if you have this candy overseas, but like it tastes like a lemon pez, just pure sugar in brick form, and this is the liquid version of it. So, all right, well, we have drink in hand, and I'm feeling pretty sweet myself, and so let's kind of dive right in. So, you recently authored a paper covering your opinions on SAST tools. So I guess let's start real quick by defining what is an SAST tool.
Sure. So I think the acronym is Static Analysis Security Tool or Security Testing, and then the tool is the SAST, which I guess we'll just refer to as SAST from now on. SAST tool, and this basically is security testing related to source code. So it's the static source code that's not changing, it's not running in production or in testing environments. It's just the raw source code. And traditionally, SAST tooling just analyzes the source code using some sort of rules based on the flow of the functions being called, the variables, how they're manipulated, and it's sort of let's say if you can query a code base and ask it, does this function call this function, which calls this function, which calls this function, which calls this function, etc., etc., etc. You can answer questions like that, which in a security context, you can answer, hey, are there vulnerabilities with patterns that we know about, and we can write these rules or queries for, and get an answer, yes, no. If yes, show me the pathway that exists in the code base.
Yeah, and so we've had guests on the past talk about static analysis through things like IDA and maybe a little bit of Ghidra, and the conversation always flows into like, how do you do this, and it always seems to drive into, well, it's just pattern recognition, and there are things that matter and there are things that don't, and you as a professional or a hobbyist will over time kind of build that muscle memory of like what's important and what isn't. And when I hear pattern recognition, like that to me is a natural case for AI, and so it feels like these AI tools, um, this could be a good use case for AI. Is that would you generally agree with that, or are we not there yet, or what are you thinking?
For sure, yes. They're good with pattern matching, but we already have this pattern matching, technology. The problem is we just have to actually make the patterns that we want to match. As you said, sort of, as a security professional, you get that institutional knowledge of what to look for and this sort of intuition of when you see something, you're like, oh, time to go and investigate that. And making those decisions, I think, is sort of the strong point of AI. Like for sure, they can pattern match, sort of in a fuzzy way, but their ability to make decisions and perform like reasoning about code is I think the sort of amazing thing that this sort of AI technology can do.
And so, great. I feel like that's a good evolution. We'll kind of talk a little bit about your findings, but maybe before we get into that, just philosophically, I guess, if we're using tools, static analysis tools, to look at source code, or reversed source code from compiled binaries, what kinds of vulnerabilities can be uncovered with a tool like this?
So with a tool like this, everything, even things that you don't know about, because if you're looking for a type of vulnerability, you sort of have these blinkers on. You're looking for patterns that you are, you have subconsciously or consciously said, I'm looking for this. AI tooling and LLMs in this sort of genre or area of tools, they don't discriminate because they're not really thinking, of course. They're not real humans. They're not animals. They're just computers doing some calculations, which we can call pattern matching. So that. I think that is also sort of one of the amazing things about this AI tooling, both in terms of security, but in general, is that they do not discriminate. They can sometimes be wrong. They can sometimes be wrong. They can sometimes make things up, but the speed at which they can go through a code base and make decisions based on that is something that simply humans have no chance against. It's a resource management problem. You can have 1,000 engineers, or you can have one AI, and the AI doesn't have the let's say an AI will investigate or can investigate things that a human would say it's not worth the time, because the AI has a lot of time because it can do things extremely quickly, and it doesn't have that predisposition to say, oh, I don't want to waste time and I don't want to explore that because there's no way it could work. But hey, what if it really could? And I think having that sort of open mindset is, as we get older, people get, sort of closed more and have concrete ideas, and it's sort of harder for them to expand the horizon and say, hey, why is it this way? Like why do we assume these things? Why do we assume these functions in this code are correct? Why do we assume that this functionality is secure? And AI, just based on speed, can go and explore that no matter what.
So I think my next question will be unfair, so kind of bear with me on this. But I asked you what kind of vulnerabilities could be uncovered, and your response is extremely bold, like everything, right? So we've done previous shows on memory corruption and input validation and hard coded secrets, and we haven't quite done an episode on like SQL inject, but it's probably coming at some point. And so like if I'm hearing you correctly, then like these SAST tools, especially the AI enabled ones, can really speed up some of this vulnerability discovery. Typically, when I have an episode on when we cover a bug class, like Dear Researcher, again, well, what is SQLI and how does it work? What's the impact? I always try and end the show with like, and what can we do about it? What can we tell a developer or a product manager to what steps can that person or team take to make sure that their product or code doesn't ship with that vulnerability present? And not one, like not a single one has ever said to use a SAST tool. And so again, this is maybe the unfair part of my question. Putting yourself in the minds of other researchers, why do you think no one has ever recommended a SAST tool? And maybe this is kind of a driving question into effectiveness again, but like it just feels like there's a disconnect where a lot of times the guest is like, yeah, there's no future, right? Everything is dark and grim, and or rust is the answer, and or whatever, or don't use this function, use this function. And your approach is, well, these tools are extremely effective. Can you help me reconcile that a little bit?
So, first of all, I wouldn't recommend a SaaS because by that time it's sort of too late.
Mm,
That's always thinking about the past, and replacing what we're doing now is thinking about the future. SAST and all of these security toolings are about are not about solving problems. They're about finding problems, and that's it. They're not about fixing problems at all. That's sort of the big, the big difference between all of this. Because as security people, like in a way, yeah, we want to fix problems, but at the same time, if we fix all the problems, we don't have a job anymore. So it can be a subconscious thing as well that maybe people don't want to actually fix problems. But if they if they don't recommend SAST and so on as a way of fixing problems, maybe they do. They do want to fix the problem. Uh, I would just say, yeah, this security, all of these security tools, it's about catching issues after they've been made. So it's very much not a solution. However, the fact of the matter is that humans make mistakes, and they're always going to make mistakes, and it doesn't matter how secure we offer the tools to engineers, whether it be programming engineers or real engineers. Buildings still break, buildings still fall down, bridges still collapse. We get better and better over time, but of course, just nothing is ever going to be perfect. And we still inspect buildings, we still inspect bridges to find those issues so that we can protect against them, not to solve the fact that the building has a crack in it, something like this.
that's fair. All right, let me make a follow on then, because you introduced this, which again is a thing that always kind of hits my mind, right? So, as I understand it, by definition, AI programs run non-deterministically, right? Same input, different output. And so, if we're running static analysis tools and getting, again, same input, same binary, same source code reference, we're getting different output. Um, I guess do you have to run these tools multiple times to increase the efficacy of like the desired results, or like is it prone to maybe miss things or overcatch things, or like, you understand what I'm saying? I don't have a concrete question for you, but it just feels like the value of running things through some automation system is like it's a box, right? Input output, and AI kind of fuzzies that up a little bit, particularly when you're looking for things. I'm just curious what your take is on that.
So the ironic thing here is basically what you just described is a human. If they're if you have a security engineer or penetration tester or whatever, they're going to have a different result every time as well. They unless they're following an exact formula to say, I'm going to read these lines of code and I'm going to think this exact thing at that moment. I don't really, like, realistically speaking, I don't really see the difference. Of course, AI and so on is not accountable, and they're not people. You can't, fire them, get a new one. I guess you can, but it doesn't really matter.
Mm.
There is no, emotional connection with them. So the way I see, or the best way I see seeing all of this AI security stuff is really just to treat it like a human, treat it like, as the advertising says, artificial general intelligence. Not because it's
Mm.
really like there, but because what's the difference? Um, I'm not so sure that when people talk about the theory of general intelligence or artificial general intelligence, they seem to assume that that means all the problems in the world are solved. But we already have general intelligence of humans. Like, all the problems are not solved. We have many problems. Um, it,
I bet
it's
some humans that
it's
don't have
it's
general intelligence. I don't know about that,
yeah, yeah.
but
But we also have some AI that doesn't have a general intelligence. And I've certainly had
totally
that
fair.
experience with some of them, and engineers using this sort of tooling, and the AI just getting things completely wrong. The engineers don't know what they're doing, so they also just repeat it, and everything's broken at the end. This is, at the end of the day, sort of just a advancement of abilities on the workforce. So instead of 5 people in the security team, you now have 5 people backed by one AI that can perform actions at 10 times the speed, 50 times the speed. They can hammer some server to do whatever and look for vulnerabilities. You can give it a checklist, no different than some auditor that is following some checklist. The auditor may not be right. They also may lie. They also may have ulterior motives. They have misunderstandings. That's no real difference between an AI security auditor or a real human auditor. The only real difference is that you feel that with a human, you have some sort of level of control because you can say, okay, you suck, you're great, you're fired, do it again, whatever. But with the AI, like, as you said, you're talking to a black box, but at the end of the day, you're also talking to a black box when it comes to many humans. Um, it's funny in a way and ironic in a way, how this advertising of AI assisted anything is just assumed to be better and smarter than any human, but it's not. It's just numbers, just speed. It's just parallelization, parallelism, whatever.
No, I like that because it's funny, with everyone marketing and branding AI, you're right, as better and smarter and more efficient. You don't hear that angle of like it's not deterministic. It's gonna get better, but it's like a human. Mistakes can be made. It's a little bit unreliable. It's a little bit unpredictable, and I don't know. It's a very again, as I'm drinking sweet lemon, and you have your sweet yogurt. That's actually a really refreshing perspective that I don't think we hear enough of. That you're getting a synthetic human, and humans can be error prone, and that's okay. We still tolerate it. We still hire them. We still are generally friends, but you're not
They have
getting
reputations
actual
like this product or this
automation.
model
You're
or
getting
whatever.
speed.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
All
you
right.
are
One
getting
last.
institutional
Yeah.
knowledge with the AI because they
Hmm.
have the history. Let's say the history of the internet, or the public internet, or some level of it as well. Which, okay, that is one of the benefits of using this AI assisted tooling, is that humans will simply not have that knowledge,
That's a good
or at
point.
least
That's a
not many of them,
really
and it's not, certainly not those cheap of humans that AI
yeah.
is.
No, that is a really good point. Um, let's talk. I guess maybe one final question on like the philosophy of these SaaS tools, and then we'll dive into your post. We did an episode on fuzzing. And I guess my question for you is, do you treat SAST tooling as like an amplifier to fuzzing? Is it a replacement? Is it something totally different?
Um, so I would say it's an amplifier. There's sort of you can sort of use this AI tooling as I said, if you replace it, if you replace a human with an AI tool here, you could have an AI tool writing fuzzes and harnesses for fuzzes. You could have an AI tool reading source code. You can have an AI tool reading the output of traditional SAST and then confirming whether the finding is real or not. And it sort of really depends on what you're actually doing with the AI. At the end of the day, you basically are just having it answer questions, but what question are you going to ask it? That's the difficult part. And if you have let's say you have a source code, a code base, where do you start? Like even as a human, where do you start to look for vulnerabilities in a source code? You don't just read 100 million lines of code and then you think about, oh, on line 1550 and then on line 157,000 whatever, those two are connected. It sort of, it sort of combines with your question before. Yes, non-deterministic. If you make it that way, you can certainly reduce the problem size and make it more reliable because simply it's not doing as difficult of work, but maybe
Hmm.
you have multi-steps, just like a human. So in terms of fuzzing, I would say it's certainly an amplifier because one, it can write fuzzing harnesses. Two, it can triage issues and work out where the actual problem lies. Because of course you might have a crash in fuzzing, but you actually need to work out why it crashes, and sometimes that's really difficult. And if you have a very large code base, like a C++ code base, for example, and you don't completely understand how the classes work, how the actual program works, this is really difficult sometimes. And this AI can just do this if it's designed well, of course. So I would say in all senses, it's sort of an amplifier, not only fuzzy.
All right, let's maybe turn to your paper now. You wrote a blog recently. It covered half dozen tools that you trialed. Um, for simplicity, in alphabetical order, and I'm going to probably pronounce some of these wrong because they're cool, but like Almanax, Amplify, Corgia, maybe that's Corgia, Dry Run, Gecko, and Zero Path. In your blog post, you really you open it by noting that these tools are like everywhere and yet nowhere. And so I'm curious what kind of like where was the inspiration to dedicate the time and resource, like your time and your resources, to testing and then comparing these tools?
So basically, I was looking, well, I was working for a company and we were thinking, hey, we should build a AI assisted security tool. And we basically said there must be something on the market for this because, of course, like everyone wants to build this, obviously, it's an obvious thing to build. And we found out about one company, which was Almanax. It was the first one we found. The founder somehow knew my boss, or like there was some connection or whatever, so it was a very easy introduction. And after we tested their product, we decided, hey, we should go and test them all. Um, then, after a long search, because these things are not on Google, they're not in the SEO business, let's say. We eventually found these other ones, and we just contacted them, say, hey, can we try? They all said yes. Like no contracts
Nice.
even signed. They were just like, yeah, what do you want to do? Give us your email address, we'll make you an account. Um, as you said, as I wrote in this post, everywhere but nowhere. Everywhere because obviously everyone's talking about AI. Let's use AI for security. But why is it so difficult to find these products on Google? And Google is just dominated by the older companies working on security traditionally, the incumbents, that have just added AI to their name. So you have the SimGreps, you have the SNCs, you have the check marks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not AI. They might have made some AI feature or whatever, but at the end of the day, they're just the same old product they have. But plus AI, which doesn't mean anything. I've tried some of them as well, and they're trash, in my personal opinion, of course.
Hey, you're the guest. You're the one who's evaluating stuff. We value that. Um, Maybe like what about cost, right? So like a traditional model is like you pay a license for something, and maybe there's a couple different styles of licensing, but it seems like AI, like the fee structure is a little bit weird because you've now got tokens and compute and my hardware, your hardware. Like with all of these tools, is there some kind of trend in like it's probably cheaper than a human being, if we're going to compare the tool to a human, but like how do I get a sense for like what a budget should be for like acquiring one or maybe multiple of these tools?
So based on my research, pricing was about $40 to $60, maybe 70 US dollars per developer, basically per seat per month. So I think that is incredibly cheap,
Yeah.
especially because of the incumbents charging a lot more for a lot less, or maybe not a lot less, but for more noise. And there are also, I found out this later, that there are other products on the market that are charging what they described as enterprise pricing, which those
Call
listening
for
at
more
home, I hope you
information.
know what that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Understood.
and like really hundreds of dollars per month per head, and their products just were not very good.
Hmm.
Um, so in terms of this sort of low pricing, first of all, I think that's too low. I think they should all be charging a lot, but I guess a couple of them sort of set this pricing, and now nobody else can change it because that's competition. I think over time they will raise. I think token price will go down. I know some of the products also offer, or will probably offer in the future, the ability to bring your own tokens. So you can use your open AI key, and then you're just charging some extra fee for the actual tool itself. I think long term, that's probably more likely to be the sort of market, how the whole market works in the future, because I can register an account and chart and get some AI to analyze a 1 million line code base over and over and over again. If I'm paying $40 for myself, it's just that's
Yeah.
called a denial of service attack to your bank account, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah. A flat fee on a variable price thing is always a little bit risky. But they'll figure it
So
out.
it's
I
certainly a good
think.
time to
Yeah.
try them out, let's say, because it's cheap and it
Yeah.
won't
That
be in the future.
audience, take note. If you've ever wanted to trial something, try it now before the companies figure it out. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Josh, so we touched on this a little bit earlier, and it's also in your blog post. So I think there's a theme here now, where you compare the tools to um, not just a human, but like a schizophrenic human. Those are the words in the post. We didn't discuss that word earlier. I think you used the phrase schizophrenic auditor. Um, Presumably, and I'm asking, this is now the question, like the person that's driving this AI enabled SAST tool, like has to have some level of experience, right? Is this is a tool for a beginner, not a tool for a beginner? Like how do you, because there's signal to noise ratio, and the tools don't run the same every time. So how do you know, again, if it's a semi competent, semi reliable human, if that's the analogy, how does somebody that doesn't have that experience know if the work performed was proper?
Um, Generally speaking, you don't, because as you said, it's a black box. If I hire an auditor from whatever company, I don't actually know if they did anything. In many cases, companies don't actually care. They just want that piece of paper that says they've been audited, right? And I would say this sort of AI stuff is really for the technical people that actually care. Um, in terms of the schizophrenic auditor, the idea here, I really like this term because I see that as a good thing, because you actually have a schizophrenic auditor, which is hearing voices in the code, which may not exist. That's the whole idea of this AI hallucination thing. But the thing is that unlike a human that can actually cause damage in the real world, and be affected themselves, of course, by it, it's an AI, it's a computer. Like it generally can't do anything that harmful, at least not now. There's no Skynet for now, but who knows in the future. But the idea here is, well, you don't know, but you can just run it over and over again and see the output. In terms of the people running it, there is an assumption that you can read the output. Uh, Most of the tools sort of explain the findings quite well. If you are a
Hmm.
programmer, you will understand it. Um, Most of the tools, which means eventually all of the tools, because of course there will be some market standardization, they all provide, or they will all provide some level of patches. They provide descriptions, they provide severity rankings, um, CWE classifications, CVSS rankings as well. So there is a small assumption of some sort of technicality of the person pressing the big red button that says find vulnerabilities or scan or whatever. But there are also dashboards, and these are for the security managers that really don't care about the actual findings. They care about the law and their responsibility and their legal duty that they're providing to their company. And some of the dashboards are good, some of them are not so good yet. But again, they will eventually all be providing, I would assume, some sort of standardized level of quality.
Fair enough. I mean, it sounds like overall you're generally a fan and a believer. Is that a fair assumption?
I'm certainly a fan. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a believer in the sense that you don't have to believe what you can already see. And I already see it. Like
Hmm.
anyone that presses that button that says scan and they read the output, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is top notch. So I'm certainly a supporter, I would say.
What about maybe comparing like new to old, right? So, I think in your blog you conclude that, the tools are pretty good at surfacing particularly logic bugs. Um, are there examples that come to your mind where perhaps the AI enabled, SAST tools are catching stuff that maybe like a traditional rule based SAST would have missed?
Certainly a lot of this stuff, and this is sort of what I meant right at the beginning of our talk today, that there's just no way to classify one or two, three vulnerability classes that these things catch, just because they seem to somehow be able to work out what the developer wanted, even if they didn't know themselves. So obviously, the developer can make some website where you log in. The developer doesn't want somebody else to log in as another user or be able to perform actions as another user because that's obvious. However, this AI can somehow work that out despite the code not defining that, not actually performing the correct checks. And in security, the hardest vulnerabilities to find are in code that doesn't exist.
Hmm.
And that's sort of, you know, I would say difficult to articulate well. But if you're looking for vulnerabilities that in code that doesn't exist, you need to understand what the code is actually supposed to do, and say, oh, there's a missing check here. It's not that the check is wrong. Uh, Traditional SASTs and security tooling can find that, but only in very basic ways that likely have already occurred in the past, because these rule sets and these queries are all built on historical data. And it's all if this, then that. Whereas this AI can sort of work out, oh, this is what they meant, therefore this, therefore this, therefore this. The walls are talking to me, like stop the noise, whatever, whatever.
I want to go back a little bit. I think you've made this really compelling analogy about, AI being a member of your team, right? Maybe have its own unique, quirky personality, and I see a lot of companies, like you said, everyone's AI now, whether they are or not. It's kind of hard to filter from a consumer perspective, but there are certainly a lot of AI powered companies emerging again in vulnerability discovery, in like automated pen testing and continuous red teaming. Do you think that these tools in these companies obviate the needs for people, or are they they part of the team, or like how does one go about? I guess maybe narrow this down to like just pen testing, right? Like, do you think an AI enabled like pen test shop is can one day be wholly automated where a customer can just like self serve, like grab a license from a piece of software on a website and just conclude the pen test? Is that a thing? Is that like a future you envision?
Yes, absolutely. I think for a company, I don't think it will completely like for a company that needs pen tests or needs a security team or something like this. I think it will never AI tools will never replace humans because there needs to be someone accountable. When something goes wrong, people want a finger. They want a human to point to with their finger and say, "You did something wrong. You're to
Hmm.
blame, not me." And that doesn't work with AI. Especially like imagine one CISO has a team of 5 AI companies. The CISO is the one in trouble at the end of the day. It's not those 5 companies. I had the idea when I sort of started looking into all of this stuff that my friend and I just need to make a website that someone pays a bunch of money to, and it just gets forwarded to one of these tools, and it scans it, and it just prints out the result and sends it back. We decided not to do that because we're lazy. We don't really like care that much about making a bunch of money. But there's sort of value added
Yeah,
websites
there.
with
I mean,
good
that's always the differentiator in pen testing is like that other team is just gonna like run Tenable, Qualys, Rapid 7 and give you the output. We're different, so I mean, there's certainly a market opportunity to coalesce tools that, kind of your point, like they're everywhere and nowhere. Like, especially if you need something and don't know where to go look to find the right set of tools. I mean, there's certainly an opportunity for it.
Well,
Um,
is that any different from the rest of the world? I mean, that's I mean, China, for example, people selling things in Europe, in America, all over the world. Of course, it's businessmen that have those connections to the factories in China, and it's just this ability to link those two places. Um,
Completely agree.
yeah,
Josh, last call. Where can our audience go to find out more about you, your work, or anything you mentioned today?
my website is joshua.hu. The idea here is, if someone asked me recently, like, why do you have the domain joshua.hu? It's because one, I couldn't buy joshua.org, and two, because I thought having the domain Joshua Who would be sort of funny. I blog about technology, life, politics, all this mumbo jumbo. It doesn't really matter. I like to complain a lot, and sometimes it's quite entertaining. So I recommend checking it out.
I'm entertained. I hope our audience is entertained. Thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate it. I appreciate the soju. You're looking a little empty. Maybe it's time to refill. And yeah, thank you to the audience. We'll catch y'all next time.